Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Sprites of Life podcast. I'm Lucas. Chris ain't here,
And I'm Don.
and we're glad to have y'all here because you know what? Chris decided not to join us today, Don.
Disrespectful.
It is, right? We're here to talk about crustacean Pokemon, made a little banner for the YouTube thing and everything, and he decides that he wants to go and be, a great dad and take care of his kid. The audacity. Well, today we are going to talk about crustacean Pokemon. They are probably some of the coolest Pokemon, although, honestly, they're not very strong. Like, have you noticed that?
I mean, well, some of them actually have some of them have big numbers, Lucas. Which, like, you
Okay.
should. I'm surprised you don't know that.
I mean, some of them do have big number, but and some of them can make number go higher. But I would hope that with the power that crustaceans hold in the animal kingdom, more of them would have bigger number and bigger presence.
See what you mean there? Yeah, I do think. I'm agreeing that there's not that many like top tier, crustacean type fellas. There is one though that I believe once got top 4 at the World Championships.
All right, and we'll get to that one once we roll in. We'll save something for the people. But for now, let's get into the news. I found something pretty neat, nothing world shattering, but something pretty cool. Do you know what a blue hole is?
Yes, because I want to dive in more.
Okay, so can you explain to them what that is? Because I'm barely learning about them.
Okay, so a blue hole is it's trying to think of a great way to describe it. They're more common in areas where there's a limestone style bedrock. It's basically an underwater sinkhole that's fallen in. So you'll see areas where water is relatively shallow, but because limestone is very easily degraded by acidity, over time limestone can be degraded by higher acidity groundwater and kind of fall in
Mm.
on itself. And it'll have areas where, say in the Bahamas, there's a famous one called Dean's Blue Hole, where it's a relatively shallow water around it, and then it's hundreds of feet down, and from above it just looks like a dark blue hole just in the bottom.
All right, cool. Because they found one that's like disgustingly deeper than that. The Tanja Blue Hole that's right off the Yucatan Peninsula. It is over, what was it? It extends at least 1,380 feet below sea level.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What's the depth it's at, like the mouth of it?
So the mouth of it, like you're seeing it, it's literally right at the surface. Like you can see, hang on, I'll show a quick picture of it here for you to see. This is the Tamja Blue Hole.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's right at the surface and then it just goes down. Not only that, they think that it might connect to like an underwater labyrinth of other tunnels.
Yeah, so we do see a lot of blue holes around the Yucatan area. Particularly, it's like they're basically the underwater version of the cenotes. They're also in the same zone, and it's the same process of basically the roofs of caves falling in, typically because the limestone degraded. Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. It
Well, at
was
least
found by a diver that was following a grouper.
of course it was. That Don, is that you? That sounds like you.
I guess it was initially found in 2003, but I think they didn't figure out the true depth until recently.
Yeah, although at least we know now how Godzilla's been slipping in and out away from the Coast Guard again.
The Hollow Earth.
The Hollow Earth, it's real.
I just wonder what the I mean, you can tell it's near the surface, but I wonder how close to the surface, because some blue holes are shockingly, like you'll be in 3 feet of water and then there's just 100-foot hole.
Just a cliff.
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, I would love to see what's living down there, honestly. Like random
I'm
holes
seeing a lot.
opening up.
I'm seeing some fishing videos and it seems like good stuff.
There's something in the hole. There's something good in the hole, at least. Oh, still pretty cool. Not everything has to be world shattering or trillions of cicadas. Sometimes we just find a really cool hole that we want to show off.
Yeah, and it's also I think it opens up an underwater cavern at the bottom of it that's 13,000 square meters.
Yeah, no, there's all kinds of weird stuff that we're not looking up, and it's not even like oh yeah, no, it's not like the Mariana Trench. Nah, you can get a boat to it. Go down the hole. Just go check it
Very
out.
close, apparently. Actually, I looked it up. But yeah, I will say like some blue holes can have weird current fluctuations, so like do research before you jump in one.
Do we have any like crazy video game news? The only video game news I had was that another live service game decided to be terrible and like have terrible numbers, but that's what, every Wednesday
Do you
at
have
this point?
any idea how little it narrows that down?
In this case, it was the Suicide Squad. So, when people announce that game, it's like, oh, this is taking place in the Arkham universe. Let's go. Oh, it's live service. Oh, we're not playing as Batman. Oh, you take down Batman like a dog in the cinematic cutscenes, and your terrible game. Like it's not looking great, which is sad
Yeah, I
because
know it has.
Arkham
I didn't know a lot about it, but I remember there being some upsetness about it when it first came out.
the same upsetness that happens with a lot of these games, but like especially since it's connected to the Arkham universe and like everyone loved the Arkham games and Arkham Batman. Like spoilers, when all the superheroes turn to bad guys and you have to go and stop them as bad guys yourself. And the way they take down Batman is like one of the like, you really gonna do him that dirty? You're really gonna take him down with
Yeah,
less
I've seen
grace than
some
Old
clips.
Yeller? Yeah, you got to take him down with less grace than Old Yeller. It is bad, but otherwise, I don't know. Is there anything going? I know in Pokemon, people are understanding the power of the horse again.
Yeah, this we have the single restricted regulation G format, and so we're allowed a single restricted. This is the first time we've had that without Dynamax and Calyrex. Both of them were very very good with Dynamax. Um, I think Shadow Rider in particular is even better without Dynamax because it just wants to go really fast in one shot things, and now things can't double their HP and it's still the fastest thing.
I mean, I seen the clips with what was it? What's the goldfish again? Chiyu?
GU. Now, the one thing too with it is a fun mechanic. Moves that have a base power lower than I think it's 40, maybe 60, have their base power increased. I think it's lower than 60. Or 40 have their base power increased to 60. So Terra Normal Draining Kiss does like real damage, and you get 50% of your damage back as HP.
Honestly, there isn't too much other than that with the gaming news. I'm sure there's something bigger I'm missing, but honestly, I just want to spend more time talking about crustaceans anyway. So let's just get right into it. Um, Truth be told, when it comes to the ocean, most people assume that it's the fish that are the MVPs because we call everything a fish that lives in the ocean or in the water in general. But if we're being quite frank with ourselves, we both know that that's not true. The invertebrates have been kicking butt in the ocean long before there was ever a sign of a vertebra, like at all.
Yeah, yeah, they've always had they've had a hell of a run.
Yeah, and they keep going. And the crustaceans are just one section of them that just do so stinking well. They're the MVPs of the world aquatic ecosystem. They've survived at every depth, temperature, salinity, pressure, and pollution level this planet can throw at them. Pokemon has made about 14 of these guys, and today I figured we'd just, talk about some of our favorites or some of the weird ones, or, we'll just go into some. I mean, we can do multiple episodes. There's like 14 of them. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what makes a crustacean a crustacean and what has made them dominate this planet so well. So, as far as crustaceans go, they are the largest subphyla of the arthropods. Would you want to guess how many identified species we have found?
At least 7.
At least 7. Folks, he's not wrong. He's done it again. 67,000 species of them.
Dead on.
That's, yeah, that's just them. I mean, uh, to put it another way, that's more than all the other vertebrate species combined. They are a lot of these critters out there. But they do all have to have something in common. So all of them are going to have segmented bodies. So they're going to have a nice hard outer shell as their exoskeleton along with it, and it's going to be broken down into different portions and sections. Jointed limbs, very important. The arthropods are all known for their jointed, segmented limbs that allow them to do all kinds of crazy stuff. Often they're with 2 branches as well, so they're pretty weirdly spaced out for walking. 2 pairs of antennas. They got to have gills, and 7 or more pairs of appendages that are for feeding, swimming, walking, breathing, reproduction. That's really what defines the arthropods in general. Is that be it a spider, be it a cockroach, be it a crab, it's all in the legs. Like there's no problem a crustacean cannot solve without just evolving some really weird hands and or feet.
Yeah, it's really the Swiss Army knife of you got 10 of them, so they can really mess around. Like there's plenty that just have claws, but we see a lot of very very specialized options.
I mean, yeah, the lobsters and the true crabs are going to have claws for crushing and gripping. Then you have shrimp, which just learned how to swim with there. They evolved really cool ways of moving it like a
Even the
wave.
little tiny hands.
Yeah, Kind of weird when you look at it up close and it's moving, but little
I
grippy
think
hands.
I love shrimp. I've kept several like freshwater shrimp and saltwater shrimp, and I like them when they're just sort of like they eat really fast with all their little tiny claws.
I love hermit crabs actually. Like, 'cause it's not just the limbs, but it's the abdomen that learned how to curl and grip onto the shell to walk around with.
Yeah, it's an incredible adaptation.
It's really cool how they do it. I mean, they're squishy and gross without their shell, but like otherwise, they're really cool. I mean, if you just go and look at the list, I mean, you got the mantis shrimp, which uses its fist to punch so hard it boils water. You have all kinds of different smaller crustacean-like creatures that'll use their claws not just for like pinching, but like almost for filter feeding. I mean, you even have like the pom-pom crab, which instead of just using its claws normally, just has them flat. That is built so that way anemones can better stick onto them. I mean, come on. Like, there's no problem they do not have an arm for, which is wild to me. I love it. But anyway, as this kind of caught off track, crustaceans really just survive by being so diverse, being able to go anywhere and be anywhere they want because their bodies are so adaptable to evolving and changing in the ocean, which has led to the scientific term slash meme arc of carcinosination. How do you pronounce that? Carcinosination?
Can is car carter I normally can't say it.
Carcinosination, whatever. It's basically the joke of like everything will turn to
Like two
crabs.
hard C's actually. I think it's like a weird carnization or something like that.
Carcinosination.
Someone that is correct on this is screaming at their phones right now.
Let them scream. They can join us and scream together. I'm screaming internally, to be honest. It's the meme of everything evolves to crabs. The idea that like multiple creatures across the ocean have just accidentally become crabs. Like you've seen this up close, right? You're closer to these animals than I am.
Yeah, yeah, we see that. There's basically actual crabs. There's the true crabs. There's many other species of like not quite a true crab, but still crustaceans. And there's even, I mean, a scorpion's basically just a crab with some other features. There's the pseudo scorpions, all of which are just something that's even just tangentially related to crabs, still taking on that sort of crab body type.
I mean, aquatically, you also have the hermit crab, king crab, and porcelain crab. None of them are considered true crabs, but they all separately just evolve similar features that we attribute to crabs because that body plan works really well. And by being very similar, they're just as effective as the true crabs. I'll be honest, we came up with the term true crabs because the Decapoda just kind of has their own little niche there. And then you have these other branching groups that just all that's why a lot of people assume that hermit crabs and all these crabs are all in one big group, but they divided out and then separately evolved these different features, which is wild. Like you don't see that in any real other organism group. Just how effective and so many different random times. Not like even one group. Hermit crabs, king crabs, and porcelain crabs are all in their own separate thing, and they still develop the features. It's wild. I don't think we'll turn to crabs though. Yet. There's still time. But I don't think we'll
You
get
have
there.
so many extra legs to like scuttle about with.
I mean, I want to
It's
get there,
very
but I know
convenient.
I mean there's work to be done, Don. You know what? There's work that needs to be done, and I feel like humanity, I mean, we're still stuck in our four-limbed ways, and we're gonna have to change at some point. Anywho, on to so crustaceans. I'm being very basic and very broad with them, just because there's so many out there. But I do want to touch on what we have with it comes to their relationship to people. Um, all right, another number question for you. How many tons of crustacean do humans capture and or consume every year?
Probably more right now because of the red lobster incident. Do you know about that?
I heard about it. Is this the endless shrimp again?
Yeah, they did another endless shrimp thing, and I think they lost like a pile of money. I
I
think it's
heard
some.
somewhere. Hang on, I'm pulling it up. I'm pulling up how much money they lost. 1 second. Oh yeah, no. Red Lobsters might be filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's bad. And this is
Yeah.
actually the second time they've had an incident go wrong. I think in the early 2000s they did a an all you can eat like king crab thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of their like higher ups like CEO level employees I think had to resign over it. Yeah, and the average person ate like 2 dozen crab legs or something, and they projected for like five, but it was
Yeah.
endless crab. So people are
Yeah.
obviously just going to just
Suck it up and
gorge.
eat. Yeah, they're gonna gorge. They're gonna roll out of that building with Cheddar Bay biscuits in their pockets. Yeah, $11 million that was lost from that. If you count that, that probably explains this. Over 10 million tons of crustacean are harvested as food every year, and I guess most of it went to Red Lobster. But like, still, it's a lot of food. And depending on the animal that they're harvesting, be it shrimp or crab or krill in some cases, it can be pretty harmful to the ecosystem. And the fisheries are done properly, you can lead to a lot of bad things happening. I mean, you remember Deadliest Catch and it was at its biggest, right? Like even those
Oh
guys
yeah,
recognized that something was going
the
down. Like if the
stranglehold of Deadliest Catch on like American society for a while was kind of crazy, and
yeah,
then
if
it
you
kicked
didn't
off
live through it,
7,000 Alaska shows.
yeah, if you didn't live through that weird time in like American TV where just everyone's watching these men fight for their lives against the Bering Sea to get crab legs for all of us to eat at Red Lobster for exceedingly low prices. Yeah, wow, some poor crab fisherman died so that way some guy can gorge himself on Red Lobster and Cheddar Bay biscuits. That's I feel sad now, Don. I don't know how to feel
It's an
about that.
incredible show. I mean, I do think the money they make is pretty great. So I guess
But
that's the trade off.
hmm and depending on over harvesting of something like krill, it can damage an ecosystem. Versus, I know shrimping has been very damaging, not so much to the shrimp population as much as also everything else that comes when you drag a giant net around and try and grab whatever you can. Specifically,
The
seahorses
bottom
take a
trawling method can be destructive.
yeah, it's pretty. There are better ways to do it, but those ways are going to be more expensive. People choose the easier ones. It's a whole thing, and again, there are too many species to talk about. But they are also an indicator species for health in an ecosystem. A crayfish. If you go into a river and you find only crayfish, yeah, that place is gross. Get out of there. It's nasty. Only they can live in that kind of filth. But it's a really good way of finding out if an ecosystem is safe or not. If you just go into these areas and you're finding these organisms surviving. They make up a huge part of the decomposers in the ocean. So whenever you have a whale fall or a fish pass away or any number of things, crustaceans are usually one of the first on the scenes to go ahead and pick it apart. I mean, even in our aquarium that I work at, like these animals will carve and pick apart anything you throw their way. Like they're insatiable in what they'll consume. And it is very fun to watch a hermit crab eat a giant clam that's the size of he is. Like it's very, very cute. So I guess all of this kind of just leads up to me like is talking about like these animals are very commonly known. They have a lot of really cool features, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of them in a bit. But it's just important to understand that while they are seen by most of the planet as just food or creepy little water bugs, they're really, really good at what they do. They've been on this planet for millions and millions of years, surviving in places that no organism has any right to survive, from the deepest darkest chemically stuffed parts of the ocean to right at the tidal levels. Like some of them just said, screw it, we're going to go live on land now, and decided to do that. Like it's incredible what these organisms have been able to pull off, and I'm really excited that we get the chance to share with you some of the Pokemon that they decided to, grace with the crabby crustacean essence. So, Don, do you want to start with like a basic one, or do you want to go with like something a little bit weird?
Let's start fun. Let's start fun
Let's
with it.
start. Let's start simple. All right, we'll talk about Krabby then. I mean, this is one of the first designed Pokemon, by the way. This was like one of the easiest ones that they decided to put together. Krabby represents, weirdly enough, it represents like the true crabs, but it also only has 6 limbs. So, eh.
I feel like Pokemon kind of has an issue, especially the early gens, with giving things the right amount of limbs.
I mean, they did it with almost every. It took them over 25 years to give a spider with the right number of limbs. So, like, this doesn't surprise me, like, at all. The Krabby is the crab Pokemon. It is one. It kind of represents the 7,000 quote unquote true crabs of the world. It does pretty good of a job. It's a crab, and they didn't really need to change too much about it. One thing I love about the Pokedex, the pincers on Krabby will regrow after they've lost a fight, and that is something that crustaceans have been known to do. As they molt after losing a limb, the lost limb will slowly grow back after each molt, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, aside from that, it walks and lives on the beach. It can be underwater. So crustaceans in general, some of them can be in water their whole lives. Some of them can kind of switch back and forth. and still others are like permanently landlocked. Like there's some we'll get to in a bit. They're like, no, you cannot go in the water. You will drown. You're not going back to being in the water anymore. But aside from that, he seems like there's nothing too crazy about him. They just made a crab. That's that.
I've always been a Krabby fan. I will say I like him and I like his evolution very much.
Well, his evolutions are when we start getting nuts. Like those are the fun things. So Kingler is a fiddler crab, and it's very weird because the Pokedex has this insistence on that its claw holds 10,000 horsepower, which is like a really weird measurement, isn't it? Like for like a claw.
Yeah, because I think you would want like crushing force. I mean, I think he does have a very high attack stat.
Oh yeah, no, he can throttle you if you can, if he can catch you. He's quite slow, but it's still pretty neat. I love fiddler crabs because with fiddler crabs, it's yes they do have that massive claw that makes life really difficult when it comes to walking around, but it's kind of like a double. Like it has two really cool features. One is it attracts a mate. It's seen as a sign of reproductive health if you have a really big awesome claw. And then it's a deterrent for rivals because you can use that to fight them off. It's not the most graceful weapon, but it gets the job done. One thing I would love to see whenever a fiddler crab loses an arm, there are two ways you can regrow it. One, the old fashioned way, nice, normal, real slow, get it nice and bulky. Or you choose the other way where they basically just molt the outer part of the claw without any of the meat inside. Like it's just a false arm in order to scare away other crustaceans. The second it's used in a fight, it breaks and shatters into a million pieces. But it's really cool that they would that kind of strategy can even come up from something like a crab. You don't think of them as going for cunning, right?
I actually didn't know that. That's a really cool way to deal with like having damage to the main claw, and it guys it sort of rewards a little bit of thinking on their part. Obviously, it is impressive as well. You'll see crabs, if their one claw is damaged, they'll actually remove it the rest of the way themselves, so that they can grow back a proper claw, basically. Like there's videos of crabs that have a damaged claw, and they'll just grab it with their other one and just pop it off and leave it there. It's also a way to deal with potential predators. You'll see crabs can. There's points along their claw where they're able to detach without like minimal like blood loss, basically, or like any real major damage. And some crabs will actually even just pull the limb off and kind of drop it in front of the predator.
Normally, this is where we get the stop on Kingler, but since last generation, we have a Kingler that has come up as the Gigamax Kingler, where he just becomes a giant bubbly spider crab, which is, I'll be honest, one of my favorite designs for the Gigamaxes. Like he's look at that king. Look at that beard. Look at him. Powerful. Masculine.
I've tried
Just
to use Gmax Kingler in competitive. It didn't work out as well as I hoped, but he's fun and he learns a lot of. Kingler's move pool is actually really weird.
like how so? Like what does he got?
It gets ally switch
Why?
because it's side to side movement. And he's a crab.
Fair enough. I don't know. You got me there, Don. Alrighty
It
then.
also gets wide guard, so it has like basically you can go like wide guard to ally switch, and then like the Gmax water move, and then like stomping tantrum. Oh, and also with hyper cutter, you're immune to intimidate.
Pretty useful in the age. Honestly, Incineroar hates this thing.
Actually, you one shot Incineroar.
Huh. I mean, if you can hit the crab hammer, which low accuracy, but eh.
I mean, it's got liquidation now also.
Oh yeah, no, that should do the trick. I mean, so long as if you're specced out right, that should probably kill it in one shot. That shouldn't be a big issue.
Does a lot, but he does compete with some other crab type Pokemon at bopping things with liquidation.
Yeah, I do feel bad though because like it sounds like its bubbles are hardcore because they're like alkaline, super high pH bubbles in the decks that'll melt your flesh if you touch them.
Yeah, it just dropped your speed stat twice. It would have been crazy if instead of giving the three like field effect damage moves to the three starters, they sort of randomized them. So like if it was this, if it was like Gmax Bubble Blast or whatever it is, and instead it did like the Gmax Blastoise move effect, it was damage over
Oh,
time. Kingler would
that'd be
have been
cool.
very viable.
Yeah. I mean, real crabs do blow bubbles. It's mainly like an after effect of breathing oxygen from just the pure air. It just forms bubbles usually from that. but it's not like something absolutely terrifying or dangerous. It's just kind of gross and weird and doesn't do anything. I'll be honest, it does look kind of cute depending on the crab.
Yeah, many of the crabs that are the sort of half in the water, half in the land crabs will really blow the bubbles. Crabs, even land crabs' lungs have to stay wet because they're sort of modified gills. So you will see that's kind of why you'll see land crabs bubbling because they do have to sort of almost occasionally dip in water to keep their gills wet enough to let oxygen diffuse across them.
It's one of the reasons why people who keep pet hermit crabs keep having them die because they don't realize that they need salt water for the gills and fresh water for drinking. Like one of the easiest fixes you can make, and they'll live a lot longer. All right, so Don, we got the basic one out of the way. You got something weird for them? Because I've got some weird ones, but like, you got anything fun?
Um, I mean, I personally, one of my favorite ones I see is actually next in the notes. So if we want to do that one, and then I'll break out another weird one.
All right, cool. So, what happens when you take the coolest Pokemon design in decades and give it the worst ability they could think of? That's the
Hey,
wimp.
hey, hey! You're not talking about Regigigas.
Fair. I said a decade. Like, if it's the worst one since Regigigas.
Oh my God, you're right. Oh my
It's
God, I'm so old.
yeah, yeah, we're both old. But like the Lissapod, the Wimpod line, what a cool design. Look at them. They're amazing. But you ruined it. Why? Why would you give them emergency exit? Oh my god. So stupid. But they
One of them did
are
make Day 2. Gliscopod did make Day 2 at Worlds.
fantastic. But it's still, it should have made day 2 and a lot of different other days. Isopods are a type of crustacean. They are one of the most like widespread because not only can you find them in the deepest depths of the ocean, you also just find them in American backyards, like the little roly-poly pill bug. What did you call them? Roly-polies or pill bugs?
A little bit of both. I think they were initially roly polies, and then I started getting more into stuff. I was like, no, actually, it's pill bugs. And then later I was like, actually, they're isopods.
Yeah, it just got worse, didn't it? I mean, isopods are very specialized groups of arthropods. They have a very cool segmented body that works almost like armor, and they are very capable of being flexible and forming into balls in some cases, or they just naturally have a really tough armored hide. Some of them are scavengers, others are decomposers, and even some are parasites that take the place of a fish's tongue. But we don't have any of those in Pokemon yet. Hang on. No, Tatsugiri just sits on the tongue. He doesn't actually take it over, but it's close enough. But
Yeah, he's surprisingly close to the tongue louse.
yeah, he's very weird, but he technically he's fish. We'll leave him. Sorry, he's a fish dragon. We'll leave him alone. But Wimpod, I'll talk a little bit about him first because he gets a lot of overshadowing because of how awesome Galissapod looks. But Wimpod, like it has like a description for him when they were first announcing the Pokemon back in that generation. That the fact that Wimpod, whenever it's corner, will spit poison at whatever is coming at them. And I thought, okay, that's weird. I've never heard of an isopod doing that. But it turns out multiple isopods have actually developed the ability to produce different types of chemicals to ward off predators. So this is an actual thing that isopods can do. I didn't know that. Did you?
I think I've heard something about some of the land ones maybe producing like a noxious sort of little secretion. But I could be wrong there. I'm assuming it's the land ones though.
Yeah, it is the land ones that are able to do that. You can't really produce a lot of like toxins out there to spit.
Yeah, exactly. I if there was like a more like a sea cucumber type of thing, or like a more of a because there are some other aquatic animals that use like almost like a tendrily sort of thing, or like a mucus blob, like a hagfish style. I don't know if it was maybe like a slime.
Yeah, you can't really spit in the ocean. It doesn't really do much to you. But I thought it
Yeah,
was really
won't
cool
go
that they
too
would add
far.
that. Yeah, they made it very much a land dwelling isopod, just wandering around, very similar to like a woodlouse or something like that. It's very timid, tends to just run away from you, which is standard. Like for these animals, like they're weaker, they're gonna run. But then we get to Galissapod when it evolves, and oh sweet lord, this thing is just a giant deep sea isopod on steroids. Most people have gotten the chance to see these things now. They're one of those weird pop culture animals now. Giant isopods are typically found sometimes over a mile underwater, and they don't do much aside from exist.
Gulf of Mexico. I think the biggest one so far is.
Yeah, no, they actually are surprisingly close. You can even find them off the coast of Georgia all the way down to around Brazil. Like they're not that difficult to find. They're really I think most of the species discovered are on the Atlantic side, which is very interesting given how interested people are in them in the Pacific. A Monterey Bay Aquarium will actually let you touch them at their aquarium, and I know that in Japan there was a lot of like even my keychain. I actually have a giant isopod that I picked up a little keychain of when I was at one of the aquariums there. So it's very much an animal that people like. Like it's one of those things that's like weirdly cute if you like make it a plushie, you know what I mean? Like the blobfish.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's very popular. The part where he is in Pokemon Snap is one of my favorite levels too. The cool underwater deep sea part.
Mhm. And I think it's just like it's really cool that they did that because they are a deep sea creature. The thing that I love is that they can go years without eating, like literal years. Like there was an aquarium, there was that story that went around about an aquarium that didn't feed theirs for over 3 years and was still alive and kicking. Like they just don't need to eat because they have a super low metabolism. They don't move around too much, and anytime there is food, they run for it, eat as much as they can, and then just go back to sitting still until they need to reproduce. So it's a very effective strategy to stay alive. Just don't do anything. Works out great
Yeah.
for them.
Particularly where the water's so cold with a cold-blooded animal, you can kind of just exist for very, very little calories.
But then, of course, we have to get to the problem that yeah, worst ability ever. If you don't know, if you've never played before, Galissapod's ability is emergency exit, and so is Wimpod's. Anytime you take
Wimp
over
out.
50%. Hmm?
Wimpods is wimp out.
Oh, really? Oh, this is
Yes.
right. I'm sorry. They just named it something different. And it's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
the
Those
same.
pods just needed to sound cooler.
Oh my god. Look, literally, it's like lose half of your health and then you get switched out immediately. What was the idea? What do you think their idea was for a strategy in a competitive game for this to be like?
Honestly, like I think it was so it does get sort of its signature move when it came out. I think was hyped was first impression. So here's my theory of like how they designed it.
Mhm.
It shows up the first turn you have first impression, which is +2 priority, so it's very fast, same as extreme speed. You do great big damage with your nice attack stat, and then you take a hit, and then you get bounced right back out, and then you get to come back in and do it right again. I'm sure some guy had a grand vision of Incineroar, Rillaboom, Golisopod cores ruling the world where they get to click fake out in first impression and U-turn forever until the heat death of the universe. But then
I
Urshifu
mean,
was made.
yeah, I think also the fact that it was on a Lola and a Lola is slow. It's so slow. Like there's nothing that
Yeah,
you
and
even if
also he came out when Bug was not the best type to have a priority move on, given that the Tapus were so dominant.
yeah, wasn't a great time. But again, the ability just destroys it. Like, look, in the Pokedex, it talks about how it's a sea monster that can literally cut the water and the air with its slicing claws. Why on earth didn't they just give it a hidden ability sharpness in this generation? That would have been easy. Or in the next one, just give it hidden ability sharpness, and you're good. Doesn't need anything unless you got a better idea.
I mean, you could have given it Mold Breaker first impression, which would have been cool because you could just, if you really hated the giraffe, you could just slap it.
I mean, if you
But
really
one cool Pokedex entry I do like for Golisopod is in Shield. It says they live in sunken ships or holes in the seabed. When Golisopod and Grapplock battle, the loser becomes the winner's meal. So we have a nice little back and forth predation rivalry going on. I mean, he was clearly really built around first impression in mind. I feel like that was really sort of designed for him. Because he has other like priority moves. Well, he also has Sucker Punch. So I really think they envisioned a world where like you do a big hit, you bounce out, you get to reset first impression and kind of do that again.
Yeah, Mold Breaker just seems like a really good fit for it then, just to be able to like, yeah, you can just bounce out whenever you want, use whatever move you want, go have fun, kid.
Might be too good, but
Yeah,
I also think it would be neat. Also, I just like Golisopod, so I want him to be good.
yeah, no. Which sometimes you just gotta be, sometimes you gotta be a little bit biased. It's fine. All right, so that's that poor abomination. What do you got?
All right, so I'm going to talk about a guy that I've always thought was neat. They weirdly hyped his unevolved form. I remember. I think they even showed it like KOing Smeargle at the World Championships for like wild applause when they were announcing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Crab-Ominable,
Oh,
or
I
that is
remember
Brawler. Yeah,
Crabrawler.
they revealed Brawler to us at the World Championships. I think I was in 2019, and it was basically it like just there and it like KOing stuff, and then they showed it KOing Smeargle, and people like erupted in cheers.
It's one of those like, oh, you know your audience. Okay.
Yeah, and then some. We got it. I was excited to use him on my in-game team, and a lot of people were initially displeased with the evolution Crabominable, he's kind of goofy. Brawler has like I think a cooler aesthetic a little bit. I was hoping for more of like a lot of people thought it was gonna be like a mantis shrimp or some sort of like more punching style guy,
Hmm.
or just not an ice fighting type.
Yeah, I think that was where they made their mistake, truth be told. And it makes
Yeah.
sense given what they're based on. I mean, let's talk about the coconut crab first.
Oh, I wasn't even. I was talking about Crabominable, who was I
Oh,
think
you
not
just
too much.
you don't want to skip the coconut crab. Fine, we'll just skip right over him. We'll just talk about Crabominable
Oh,
because
I
it's
didn't know how much time we had because I thought we had another guy after this.
we got one more guy after. I'll speed run it. I'll take it.
Okay, yeah, take the coconut crab. I like coconut crabs. We can talk about
Yeah.
them.
So Crabrawler is based on a coconut crab. Coconut crabs are the largest land vertebrate by weight still around on this planet. They're really cool because they start off like hermit crabs, like they do have to live in a shell, but eventually they grow so large that they just leave the water altogether and they just start walking around committing crimes. And I'm not joking about that. Australians call them robber crabs because anything they grab is now theirs. Like you
They
can't
actually
make them
like
let go.
shiny things too.
Yeah, it has the strongest grip any animal in the animal kingdom. Like it is ridiculously powerful. Anything it grabs onto is basically theirs because you can't remove it from them. The only way you can remove it is if you basically kill them, which sadly does happen. In some islands, they're basically extinct because people have been eating them. Apparently, the giant crab is delicious. Who knew?
Yeah,
There's
the giant
also
crab that eats coconuts is delicious. It's like coconut crab's already a menu item.
it's
They're
already yeah, it's
pre-seasoned.
pre-seasoned. It's marinating in its own juices. But like legitimately this thing it got a little bit of popularity amongst like the pop culture because people learned that like, oh no, this thing will eat birds if it can grab them, but then
They
also are like,
allegedly ate
oh
Amelia Earhart.
yeah, that was it to get it to like, yeah, Amelia Earhart's body potentially was found to have been eaten by coconut crabs, which is like,
Well, I don't think they
okay,
ever found her body. I think they just assumed maybe crabs ate her if she made it to this one island.
yeah, I mean, I would also she would probably would have passed away and then they ate her. They're not exactly like gonna go after something that's like, moving and fighting back.
Unless you're like really hurt, though. I guess. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't, hesitate if they thought they could do it.
Yeah, but it's a weird crab that decided to evolve into a weirder crab. Crabominable, if you don't know what it's based off of, is super strange. Like it's not exactly a crab that most people talk about.
Yeah. So I feel like Crabominal's actually got a little bit of two different crabs, and I'm going to make my argument for why.
Okay.
Okay, so one of them, and we mentioned them earlier, is in my opinion the pom pom crab.
Hmm.
So Crabominable has the sort of fluffy things on his fists a little bit. He has the ability Iron Fist as well. So we know that he does punching, and they talk about how powerful his punches are in several Pokédex entries. As we mentioned before, the pom pom crab is a crab that has a symbiotic relationship with sea anemones, where the crab attaches the anemones to its claws, basically. The anemones get to be moved around mobily, so they have better access to food. And sea anemones are venomous, so the crab has poison fists to punch stuff with for defense. So it's a mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. And like I said, I think he throws a little bit from that. But also we know that the Crab is a fighting ice type. I think that typing threw people off. They expected a bug or a water type, and ice was a rough typing when Incineroar was just added to the game.
Hmm.
But there's also the Yeti crab, which I'm assuming you were going to mention.
Yeah, the Yeti crab is probably one of the ones I always mention because it's such a weird little dude. But also, I recently got a chance to talk about it because I was taking a NOAA workshop that was talking about how we teach about the deep sea. And I brought it up like, yo, that creature over there is a Pokemon. Your students are going to love learning about this thing because it's just, if you've never seen what a Yeti crab does, it has these very weird, hairy arms that just allows it to pick up and filter near the vents that are down there, the hydrothermic vents, and they'll just feed off that and they won't really have to move off the vent. Like that's basically that's the gist of this creature. Like it just survives in a chemical hot zone with pressure that should crush you into a ball, and it just vibes there its entire life with really weird, but not really hair. It's more like cilia. It's more like just a special. I don't know
Sexy,
what is the actual name of it. Shoot, what's the
sexy.
name? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. But yeah, it's all it's got, and it just waves around. It's a very cool crustacean on its own. It just got tied to yet another Alolan Pokemon and Alolan stats
Yeah, it's
during the
actually kind
Alolan.
of good in Trick Room, though. I will say, you're immune to it. They really love giving the crabs hypercolor. I think the Crawdaunt line, this guy, and Kingler all have it.
Mm. I
So yeah,
mean,
I guess it's hard to intimidate a crab.
all right, we got the last one we're talking about today because it's weird and nobody likes him, and I feel like he deserves some love. How do you feel about barnacles?
I mean, I know a lot of I've had to learn a lot about barnacles. I had to identify a lot of them in a lab practical, and that was less fun. A lot of them look the same, but
Honestly,
there's a lot of really cool ones.
yeah, I mean, like barnacles, most people don't realize that they're animals at all, let alone that they are crustaceans. They are crustaceans just like any other crab or any other isopod or anything else out there. They just look really, really weird because they've adapted a really, really weird lifestyle. They're basically built themselves into a life cycle where once they reach adulthood, they will connect themselves onto a solid, flat object of some kind, and then they will then create almost like a cement-like structure and layer itself to make itself a home. The adhesive that it produces is apparently stronger than many industrial glues. It's real tough stuff. There's a reason so many boat docks have to be dedicated to like pulling a boat out of the water and scraping off the barnacles, like because they will grow on just about anything that is flat enough and slow enough. And Pokemon decided, yeah, we're going to go ahead and we are going to make a Pokemon based off the barnacle, and that's where we get Binnacle and Barbaracle. So the Binnacle and Barbaracle, they're gooseneck barnacles, so they're a little bit different than the barnacles you or I might see hanging out off like the Gulf of Mexico. Gooseneck barnacles, so basically they have the quote unquote head of this organism kind of is able to stick out and help kind of filter throughout the water. It's not as good at filter feeding as some other barnacles are, but its muscular stalk that lets it kind of stretch out lets it kind of grab a little bit more food than it normally would. It's I don't know why they picked this one, although I think I might because it is one of the few barnacles that is edible to humans. The stalk
I think
is
they're
basically
very highly uh, sought after.
I've seen that they are eaten a lot in the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah.
Portugal and Spain, they're eaten quite a bit there,
Oh,
and it
also
is a
back when people believed in spontaneous generation, they thought before they thought that birds migrated, they thought that's where geese came from. So I guess why they're
you,
called gooseneck barnacles.
I saw that, and I didn't know if we should bring it up in the episode because honestly, that's really weird, and I don't know how it got that far.
I think it's
But
fun
it's fun, but I just don't know.
because
It's a lot.
because yeah they thought the geese grew on branches, and they would find them in the waters. They thought the barnacles were attached to branches that fell in the water.
Science has come a long way. It's I do want to talk a bit about Barbaracle because honestly, this design is it's an, I don't
His
hate it.
his head hand is really weird.
Yeah, the head hand is what sets me off a little bit. Like,
His
like there's
shiny
no
form's
need for
also
it.
hideous.
I mean, yeah, how many shiny forms are fantastic though? Like compared,
It's bad.
dumb question. There's some pretty great ones, but like that one is pretty heinous. I don't know. With Barbaracle, it's not a Pokemon that people use a lot. It's a water rock type, so that typing alone is a mixed bag one way or the other.
And
Um,
it's outclassed by the other water rock types.
Yeah, it's outclassed. It does get shell smash, which is nice, but it's not
So does
perfect.
Omastar.
Yeah, like almost everything with a shell kind of gets it. And I don't know, it's one of those Pokemon that time forgot, and I'm okay with bringing it up in an episode like this because I don't want people to forget it, even though it's freakish weird and nobody really liked
I
it.
think a better ability could help it. Like Tough Claws isn't bad, but
Mhm.
Sniper's weird and Pickpocket is not very good.
It's just because it has all the hands. It's all hands. That's why they wanted to make it a pickpocket, and it's just like, why? Like, I
Yeah,
get it that literally every limb on it is basically just a little grabby, grabby hand, but like you can do better. Like, I don't know, we can come up with something. We have a little bit of time left. What would you give it?
Okay, so not Swift Swim because it's a barnacle. I think it should be slower. I think it should be like Torkoal speed. So okay, I've got two thoughts.
Okay.
One, you could give it like I mean, like you could just go boring and give it like suction cups or something, which is not that useful for it, but I guess it would be on theme.
Mhm.
Um, I think it would be cool to have some sort of Tatsugiri Dondozo situation, but with Wailord, where it's got some ability where it combos with Wailord, and maybe instead of like an Omni, like instead of being like a Dondozo clone, maybe it gives it like a layer of armor where like it's guaranteed to take like 3 hits or something
Oh, that'd be cool if it was an ability where literally the Wailord can like survive 2 hits, like no
because he's
damage. Like
got a
it just
Barbarnacle like jumps on and then turns into a sick beard.
Oh, that'd be cool if it was like a Mimikyu disguise thing.
Yeah,
Or
like or
literally
he just gets like power armor.
Mhm. Yeah, be great. I think that'd be fine. I mean, it might break it, but it's a Wailord. How bad could it be? It'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean Wailord's
Might
got
break.
a billion HP in water spouts. So they could do something cool.
Yeah, it'd be neat enough. I mean, truth be told, I just wanted to do this episode in part because I think Barbaracle deserves something. When I was playing the game, he was in the first time when I was playing Gen 6, like, I loved him because he was a freaky little guy that nobody else liked, and I could just respect it. But then the second
I
I
remember like
saw,
I've lost to it with Shell Smash too.
yeah, I mean, the second you see
It can
Clawitzer,
get you.
yeah, the second you see Clawitzer, you realize, oh, well, I got to change this out. I don't know. I mean, I did change him out with another crustacean, so I can't feel that bad. But I'm glad we could get to do this episode. I'm sad Chris couldn't be here to join us, but these animals, these organisms, they're amazing. Like, they have been on this planet for so long. I can't wait to the next Pokemon game because more likely than not, we'll get another crustacean. We got one the last game. We got Cloth, which sadly a disappointment. But I feel like I feel we'll
I like him a lot too, just as a little dude.
Yeah, no, I want a plush of him. I want a plush of him to take to work so that way I can add him to my pile of plushies that are already on my desk. I like cloth design wise, but that's the problem with most of these. It's like most of these design wise go hard, but then their abilities and everything else stinks. And I'm hoping that fixes somewhere down the line, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I think we're basically out of time, but I do want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys appreciate the episode. And if you guys have any other requests or want to talk to us, our Discord's down below. Please join up, ask anything you want. We're always an open book. Until then, Don, again, thanks for hanging out and talking about crabs. I
No,
appreciate
I
it.
had fun. I had fun. Now I want to go make a crab team. We have enough of them. We can
Crab.
go full crab
For your second there, I
or
thought you were
full
saying you're gonna go
crustacean.
make like I thought you were gonna say, I'm gonna go crabbing. Just like leave with a crab pop out over your
I
shoulders. Like,
should go.
I'm
Stone crab season's about to end. I should go crabbing.
You go crab. All right. While you go crabbing, I'll wrap things up. Y'all, thank you so much for coming. Have a great rest of your day or night. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody.